Welcome back to the Data Cloud Diaries with SteveTechArc. Today we're going to be diving deeper into data streams. Welcome back to SteveTechArc and the Data Cloud Diaries, where we dive deep into Data Cloud. We're going through another pass. In the last few months, great new capabilities have added. So we're going through end to end through Data Cloud, and we're going to look at all the little new details and capabilities that are in there. So today we're going into the data streams that map into the data lakes, and we're going to look at some of the new capabilities. So first, I have a new file that I've used in previous videos. This is my runways, and I'm adding it to my Amazon S3. So now you'll see we have airports and runways. So here we are back to the data streams. I'm going to take a new one. We've already created the connector in a past session. So we're not going to focus in on the Amazon S3, but we're going to show it pretty quickly as we move in. So we're going to take the S3. We're going to use the existing connection. We're going to be using the default directory, and this is going to be runways.csv. Here is where you can give it the source. This is Amazon S3. This can get a little bit long of a name, but this is where you're going to want to watch this source. This way, you can have multiple data sourcing into a target DLO or DMO, and you can then know at the record level which source it came from. So this can be a very important value if you have more than one source coming into your DMOs and your DLOs. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit next. And now the next thing that's really important is determine whether you're going to bring this into an existing data lake. In this case, I'm coming into a new data lake object, and here is where you want to give it a good clean name. So I'm going to go STA runways. So this is very important. This is your chance to give it that clean name at the top. Next, as we've talked about before, you need to categorize your data into either its profile data, which is generally going to be one-to-one with that human being, where profile is about an individual, an account. What we're doing is we're looking for things that are the one-to-ones. Steve has this ID. Steve is a member of this. Steve is something. So things about the individuals. Now, when we go to engagement data, this is about activity, things that happen over time. And so this data stream comes in and represents time-based activities. It could be purchases, it could be visits, it could be other things that are happening over time. And then if it's not about the person, it's not about the engagement, you're going to classify it as other. Now, you need to have a primary key to uniquely identify that. Now, you could start by having just a key that's in the data. So here I could take ID, and now I have the primary key. Now, you may find that when you have, as I mentioned earlier, if data flows in from multiple sources, that you might want to do something such as take the source and add it to the ID. So you may have different IDs. So I can go and create a new formula field, and this could be called P key. And now what I can do is I can start to choose what kind of primary key this would be. So what I could do is you'll see that I can have all these functions from conversions, dates, logical text. I can also choose from the attributes of the data. So this is attributes. Let's assume I want this to be a certain field, AWS, and then the key. Now what I could do is I could go AWS plus the source field, or even AWS underscore as the source field. And you see what I can do is I can access the attributes, I can access functions, and then from there I pick the return type. And here I'm picking a text. And then what you can do is you can plug in a tested value, and you can watch and see how it changes. Now there's a couple of different ways you could create this. I could do this with the plus sign, or there is a concat function where I can then just send a comma separated list of the values and test this, and it creates the same effect. So this is a formula field, which I'm going to call P key, primary key. I get to check its data type. I get a lot of powers. Now, key elements you need to realize is it's only basing itself on the row of data. So only the other rows can be chosen to be part of the data. And then I come save. So what I've got now is if I scroll right here, you should be able to see, let's find the P key. And you'll see the really nice way they've laid it out. We have supported fields. We get to see unsupported fields. We have the lineage fields, which are telling us where the data is coming from. And then we have the formula fields, the P key. So what we have is the original fields. We get to see fields that Data Cloud won't handle. And then here. So you want to set this up at the beginning when you're first mapping out your data. Now what I can do is I can actually come here and I can change the primary key of this data to be this formula field. This way, when I will be able to, if I have multiple, let's say, data sources feeding in to a particular data lake object, I could know which ones were based on which source, and I can actually, in this case, embed it into creating what's called, it's not a compound key, it's a compound values in a single key. Here, you would determine whether there was a field that would tell you when it was modified or organizational unit modifier. So I'm going to leave this blank, but what you've seen is the ability to create formula fields. You can then designate that as your primary keys. You definitely want to get your, I like grouping my data with certain prefixes when I bring in a large variety of data sources into Data Cloud. So think about your use of data prefixes and the namings. Also decide whether you're going to go singular or plural, whether a Data Cloud is a runway or runway. So singular words, kind of like, account versus accounts. So think of your naming carefully. Enforce your standards. Now I'm going to hit next. And now we're going to start taking a look again deeper. From here, STA runway is the name of the object. It's the data stream name. It's using the default data space. I haven't yet set up my segmentation. Decide whether you're going to do your upsert. Now we've created the P key, and we can then know what the primary key is, and are we going to be doing a full refresh? So if I were having multiple, objects, I get to decide full refresh or upsert. In this situation, we're going to do upsert. We know we're coming from a certain bucket because of the connector we used. We're going to leave the directory blank. Here is runways. Now, what we're going to have is we're going to be able to log an error if no file is found. Now, the headerless retrieval allows it to pull a file without that header record, typically a standard in the CSV. I'm also going to show you a reference document about naming. When you're creating naming, data lake object namings, because essentially we're creating a DLO out of this. Whether this is some benefit, this is a document from Salesforce. Name must be unique, no longer than 40. Only underscores, begin with a letter and not spaces, can't end with an underscore, and can't have 2 consecutive underscores. So just showing you some of the key naming standards you need to stay within. And what we're going to be doing is we saw the header list. Our file does have a header. We're going to log an error. Again, we need to watch in your practice environments. Don't have any of these scheduled or you'll be burning credits. And in this case, we're going to go without a schedule, but we're going to trigger it immediately. And now we're going to go deploy. And so we've seen some of the new features and capabilities compared to the initial Data Cloud from a number of months ago. So now we're going to take a look. There was something I'd also like to call out. So we've got the fields. We can see the fields here. We can see the P key, primary key. We can actually see the formula field. So we get access to examine the formula field. So now what we have is this data stream has that formula field. There is something new. A new object has been created. It's called the problem records data lake object name. So if it goes to load data and it encounters certain records which cannot be loaded, they won't just go away quietly or be missed. The records will actually go into the PR prefix in front of your object, DLL, and that will allow you to track those records. So I'm going to go to the Data Explorer, and we are going to refresh since I've done a little load. We can come right over here to my Data Explorer. We'll go into Data Lake Objects, and you'll see that I have a PRSTA runway. And this will have fields like the data source, the detailed error, the error code, the error fields, the error timestamp, and you can actually query off this data. So this way, if for some reason Data Cloud cannot process the records, then the records will be available for you. So coming back over here, that's a nice new feature, the problem records. You get to see the fields here mapped. We can actually take a look at these. We can disable fields. But this is our list of fields that have come in from the data stream. And you'll see if I go to the data lake objects, and what I'm going to do is, so here I am in my STA airports, STA runways, and I'm going to go to my runway. And so from here, we really get pretty much the same view. We have the data source, which goes into the data lake. We get to see the P key as the primary qualifier. I get to see which one are the problem records, and I have yet to be doing the data mapping. But key elements is be aware of how you've structured your data. Make sure you get that, pick your type of data, the engagement, the profile, the engagement, or the other, and get your keys really nailed down. Now, there are choices. Bring in extra data columns for future mapping, or only bring in what's necessary. So kind of best practices with Data Cloud is do your mapping outside of Data Cloud, determine exactly what you need, and only bring in the records you needed. So here I get to see my fields. I get to see the details about this when it was created. And then I get the refresh history. And this one's actually processing right now. So this is my runways. So this is my data lake. Let's go back to the data streams. So you'll see in the time we've been here, it's brought in 45,000 records, and we can actually go take a look at that with the Data Explorer by going into the runway. And remember, this is going to show me 10 columns and 100 rows. So there I am with my airport idents. I get to see the data source object, and I start to get to see the elevation and information about the runways. So these are some new features and capabilities of the data streams mapping into the data lakes. So there's some great new capabilities on the field mappings, the organization, even catching those error handling. So this product is quickly maturing, and there's great new features. We're going to continue in future videos and start walking through looking piece by piece at Data Cloud even deeper now. Thank you for joining SteveTechArc. Make sure you subscribe. This was Diving Deep. Join me again, same bat time, same bat channel. Make sure you subscribe and have a great day.